What's up, you guys? Thank you guys for watching the Modern Flow podcast. I'm so greatly appreciated about all the support and the listens and the referrals and the people that have jumped on the podcast. I just want to say thank you and appreciate you guys. And quick promotion. We got Peak Performance Academy, and if you're interested in working with me and performance coaching and life coaching, please let me know. Just book a discovery call. This is how we support the channel. This is how we support more podcasts, more guests. All this stuff takes time, and the best way you could support is hitting a like button, sharing it, commenting it, and tagging somebody on it, and just helping spread the message. This year, I'm really trying to make it 10 times the impact. So, yes, I'd love to hear from you. Book a discovery call. Refer this out to a friend of yours if you like personal development. And if this message resonates with you, we greatly appreciate it. All right. Thanks, guys, and enjoy the podcast. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Modern Flow podcast. We got a collaboration with Jonathan Simos today. Is that how you say your last name?
Yes. Well, actually, funny story. My cousins in New York say Simos. We say Simos. So
Okay.
that is correct either way.
Simos. Perfect. So Jonathan is a host of Excel Beyond Boundaries, and we connected through Facebook, correct? One of our
Yes.
Facebook groups. He is a trainer, a holistic trainer similar to me. And we thought it would be a fantastic idea to hop on a podcast and talk about some of our expertise and share our knowledge and wisdom to both of our communities. Jonathan has some very exciting things that he has done and he's working on right now. And I wanted to bring it here and pick his brain a little bit about some of the things that he's accomplished. So he is a host of Excel Beyond Boundaries. So feel free to introduce yourself, and I'll give a brief introduction after you're done too.
Yes, my name is Jonathan Simos, and I'm a lifetime drug-free athlete and host of Excel Beyond Boundaries, which is a podcast that is fitness focused, but it's mindset, movement, and momentum. So it's more so transformation. So a lot of self-development, mindset, kind of similar to what your background is.
Yes.
And then I'm working on building a brand that the podcast is associated with called New Exist, which is NEUXIST. So it's a holistic fitness brand.
Okay, the fitness brand is called New Exist. The podcast is called Excel Beyond Boundaries.
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. And if any of Jonathan's listeners, my name is Samnang Man. I'm the host of this podcast. It's called the Modern Flow Podcast, and I'm on episode 76. I started it a year ago with a high school friend of mine, and it literally just came out of us just talking about personal development and just being better on social media. We connected on Instagram, and we decided to record a podcast. Originally it was called Figure the Fuck Out.
I like that.
Then I changed it to Modern Flow Podcast. I didn't want to put the F word in it, but we definitely did say a lot of F words in the beginning. And then we started to clean it up a little bit. And he has his own podcast. And I stuck with the Modern Flow Podcast and invite very inspiring guests come on to the show. I've had world-class athletes, bodybuilders, competitors, PhDs, and doctors talk about their expertise and their wisdom. And I have a free Facebook community called Peak Performance Academy on Facebook. It's where like-minded individuals, like entrepreneurs, especially mission-driven entrepreneurs, and the mission of that podcast and the Facebook group is to help elevate the collective through coaching and conversations. So part of this podcast is an extension of my coaching and just having great conversations so we could get more out of each other and teach each other different ways of how we go about our life in developing like a holistic routine and just being better, right? Living beyond our boundaries and our limitations.
I like that.
But yeah, and the other thing is I'm also a life coach, performance coach myself. My background started in at my core, I'm an entrepreneur. I went to school to study business, worked in different office settings, and really honed and built my skill set in the gym, outside the gym, doing social media and marketing. So I have a passion for that. So that is my entrepreneurial background, and I am a performance coach. So get my big three thing is mindset mastery, meta identity shifting, and then having tools and strategies to help implement um, the strategies and things that we want to accomplish. So that's a little bit about my background, and now we could get into the podcast, just introducing ourselves about our formality and everything. Um, we're both drug-free athletes, so let's start with there.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, rare today. It seems like, I'm not hating on bodybuilders. I have a lot of friends who are, currently on PEDs who are bodybuilders,
Yeah,
but the rest of the population that's not a competitive bodybuilder, I don't think people should be on them. And there's so
yeah,
many people on them. It's like an epidemic today.
it is. Well, social media could kind of gives that. Because when I started, bodybuilding was in the ninth grade. Uh, I know I don't look that old, but I'm hitting near 40 now. So I started lifting 16 at 16. And I've seen the ups and downs. I've seen the people lifting weights, and I guess the idea for PEDs is to speed up the process. And for me, the reason why I chose to be a drug free athlete was more I wanted to train the mental side of things. And for me, discipline, and I'm not saying there's people that have elite physique that do PEDs and everything and have world class, and we're not taking it away from it. But the drug free part for me just really instilled that work ethic, just to do the work, don't skip, don't take any shortcuts. Uh, and also to there are side effects to drug free or being drug free, especially like being a athlete in bodybuilding. You could stay healthy for a long time, you know?
Oh yeah, and I feel
Yeah,
like when you try to cut a corner like that and take PEDs and for performance, it makes your tendons weaker, and then
yeah,
the muscles grow, get stronger too fast for your connective tissue to keep up, and that's when you see traumatic injuries. Like something
yeah,
snaps off the bones, someone tears a pec. Being a drug-free athlete, I've never had a traumatic injury. Like, have you have
yeah.
ever had a traumatic injury?
Not a traumatic injury. I've had some ACL tears, but to be honest, the injuries I've had was not from bodybuilding. It's been from like rock climbing,
Ah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
which wasn't my main sport, so I try to avoid that. But I played football, but that's where the injuries came. But it wasn't like a traumatic injury, and I definitely like understand like if you do it from the ground up and build a really good foundation. But let me hear this, Jonathan. Like, when did you start, and how old are you? And you've been doing it for a little bit. You got some more records too, so I want to hear a little bit about that.
Thank you. I started actually same age, 15, 16. I started lifting weights. Prior to that, I loved running, so I'd like run across my city. At a young age, I would go on these long runs. But I started lifting at 15 or 16, and I didn't know how to work out, and
Yeah.
I couldn't afford a personal trainer, so I just learned through trial and error, researching on the computer at the time, and then I had
How
good
long ago was
progress.
that? How old are you?
I'm 36.
You're 36. All right, so we're 3 years apart.
Ah, okay, very close.
Okay, yeah.
So
So you started almost the same time I did. Yeah,
yeah, pretty close.
yeah,
Yeah, I started lifting at 16. Had good progress, but then eventually I got imbalances and injuries because there's a right way and a
yeah.
wrong way to work out.
Hmm.
And so I had upper cross syndrome, lower cross syndrome, iliotibial band syndrome, all kinds of things, shin splints.
Yeah,
And so then I began to pursue the credentials to fix myself years later. I got tired of, feeling aches and pains, not being able to perform. So pursued the credentials, fixed myself, and then started performing on a higher level, and
yes,
eventually started jumping into competitions and all kinds of things like that.
yeah. I mean, that's important to say. Like when people first start out like a fitness program, they tend to try to do it themselves, which you can, right? But it's very hard to overcome that first initial part where you get stuck. When I started lifting weights, it was actually in the high school weight room. So I had other athletes, other coaches involved, but it's still at the end of the day, it's an individual thing, right? So individual fitness program and learning how to motivate yourself and getting yourself in the beginning to get started, and then learning as you go, right? And for me, like when I first started, I didn't have too many coaches, but it was until I started getting into the CrossFit world, right? Because I always bodybuilded, powerlifted, but didn't have like a program, a written program. I didn't know much about programming, didn't know much about coaching. I didn't realize people could coach you on weightlifting or bodybuilding, or it wasn't even like in my mind that I needed a trainer. Some people
Uh,
might be in there where they're starting like their fitness program. They might need a trainer. They might need a training partner or something like that. So those are all good, but I think really developing something in a mind that actually like has that intrinsic motivation, having like a higher purpose, I think is super important, especially when you first start out, so you can overcome a lot of those like mental blocks, those times when you're gonna feel not as motivated. Um, so you and I have been lifting and training for a very long time. That consistency, there's ups and downs,
oh
just like with
yeah.
everything. There's like ups and downs. So like when you first started, you said you got a little bit of injuries and everything. When did it start to really click for you?
I would say, and actually, I wanted to mention that what you were saying is really so true about.
Yeah,
In other words, every coach needs a coach. Like everybody could use someone to help them with their programming, with their training, their accountability.
yeah,
So I like that. But I say it took me a couple years to really get in a flow
yeah,
and start, getting lean muscle, getting good strength gains. But and I had so 16 to 18 was pretty good, and then about 18 to 20, I kept breaking through plateaus. I'd hit like, um, for example, when I was in high school, I was so happy when I hit 135 as like sophomore year, and then
yeah.
I was so happy when I was
Benchmark.
yeah, then like
You hit
185.
225 in high school?
I did.
Yes,
I,
I did too.
yeah, a lot of people never did, but I just was I loved getting stronger, and I was so
Yeah,
focused on that, and would channel all my energy at the gym into lifting heavier. And so then I got 225, 275. I got up to 315. Um,
dang.
and then when I was older, I got a little higher, but in high school I maxed out at 315.
Hmm.
But my point is that it's amazing how you hit plateaus, you break through. You hit plateaus, you break through. But then I started getting the imbalances around 20 years old, and it was rough. Yeah, iliotibial band syndrome. Couldn't even run. My glutes were so underactive. My hip flexors were so tight. I was so quad dominant that when I was doing sprints, I slightly tore my hamstring. So all kinds of little injuries.
Yeah, yeah. And then when you started fixing those imbalances, that's when things started to click a little bit more. Is that kind of where
Oh
when you started
yes.
working? Yeah,
To answer your question with that,
yeah,
I would say yes. When I started fixing my imbalances, my performance skyrocketed, and then I started seeing the potential, and also seeing certain gaps in the industry that I wanted to fix with my fitness venture.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but at that time, I wasn't even a trainer. I had the desire to be a trainer at a young age, but I kept putting it off. So I worked in restaurants, all different industries. So the idea for my fitness venture came about in my mid to late 20s. I was actually
Hmm.
at a cafe in downtown Los Angeles at a Starbucks, and I was sitting
Okay.
there, and I came up with the name, and I remember thinking how there's CrossFit. CrossFit's cool, but there's not like a really easily scalable functional training system that applies to everyone that's branded that way. And then there's not a lot of education for the clients. It's all geared towards trainers. So I started seeing these gaps in the industry, and I wanted to create a venture that kind of filled those voids, and an efficient and effective way of functional training.
Yeah,
And so then I started getting the credentials to not only fix myself, but also to kind of put that brand together. So I started with the CPT from NASM, the CAFS from the Gray Institute, and then different, specializations. But yeah, once my performance began to skyrocket, I saw the potential. So then I started jumping in Spartan races, strongman competitions. My goal was to be a hybrid athlete like you. My goal was to
yeah,
be as strong as possible, as fast as possible, and then try to boil that down into a simplified system that people could integrate into their lives along a scale.
yeah. I love it. I mean, you are
Thank
a hybrid athlete. You don't have to need me to validate that you're a hybrid athlete, but what you're doing is hybrid athlete.
thank
I
you.
guess my definition of a hybrid athlete would be strength and conditioning as your core base. Strength and conditioning when it comes into like the compound movement, the big fours, powerlifting, squat, bench, deadlift, right? And any different variations. And my background came from years in the gym, just grinding it in the gym, powerlifting with the football team, going through sports season, and throughout college, I lifted weights. And for me, that was actually one thing that actually got me. And we talk a lot about like personal development and like flow. I think you mentioned a little bit about like when you get into that flow state. What you mentioned was like when you start to have a direct correlation, like you learned something, somebody taught you something, or you took a course, and you see direct uh, relationship that what you did had effect on it, right? And that gives you like a repetition or like a feedback loop. And when you get a feedback loop, that creates like a neural connection to your brain. So mentally, it makes you better, right? Makes you more like confident. That's why a lot of people love going to the gym, and that's why it was so addicting. So in the beginning, like when I first started, I weightlifted in high school. Everybody always knew me as like an energetic person. And then for like a year in college, I didn't weightlift, but I felt terrible because I was drinking and just socializing. But that's
Um,
when I started getting back into it. That's when I started getting the energy. And like a lot of people still remember me as a very energetic person. I'm still a very energetic person. I'm hitting like near 40, and I have two kids and stuff. And doing that over for a long, long time, you see a lot of ups and downs, and also lots of setbacks as well too. But I think some of the best ways to overcome plateaus or like setbacks is to switch up a program. You know, you
true.
can't do a program forever for 24 years, right? For I always talk about people or coach people is like do things in seasons. You know, I first started lifting and became a hybrid athlete because I was playing sports. Naturally, I just love weightlifting because it was such an individual sport. But most sports are done in 3 months, 4 months. And when you look at things in like 3, 4 months, like increments, like seasons,
Oh yeah.
and then you switch it. Okay, maybe like right now it's starting to become a little bit warmer outside. I'm gonna start focusing on my diet a little bit more. Start focusing a little bit on my cardio a little bit more, so I could show the muscles that I've been building. But a hybrid athlete, to me, it's like where you take that core of what you have, the strength, the conditioning, and able to apply it to different parts of your life. You know, I think a
I,
lot of people miss that point.
I
you know,
love that. Oh,
yeah,
100%. Kind of like
yeah.
waves of specialization in a sense.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, I've always used it, and we could get into like how that performance in the gym applies outside of life as well too, because it's such a mindset thing. And from you as going through your training, doing cert, and kind of building your brand and everything, and you started doing Spartan races, what it gave you? It sounded like it gave you a little bit of momentum. It gave you a little bit of that inspiration. And how has that brought you to here? Now you got a podcast and you got your own brand. And what are you looking to accomplish like with your personal brand and fitness brand recently or like now?
I would say with the personal brand, I want to inspire others to break down self-imposed limitations because, like you were saying, it's so much mental and there's so many self-imposed limitations people have in their mind, and so I want to help people break down self-limiting beliefs and limitations and live up to their truest potential. And then, as an athlete, um, so I'm trying to do that, inspire them as a drug-free athlete through pushing human performance. So I want to keep pushing and attempting different records. So I did the first Guinness record, and then the second one pending that I mentioned, and I want to go for a couple more in the near future, just to show people they're capable of much more than they think they are. And then the brand, so the personal brand is inspiration, guidance, education, just trying to help people make an easier transition into a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah,
And then the brand kind of supports that. So it's more so a community. So holistic fitness brand, so community. And I'm still putting it together, but it'll be, courses, more of an educational focus and a training element as well. So a simplified version of training
yeah,
that I mentioned. And yeah, and I'm excited because I feel like everybody needs exercise, and in this day and age, people recognize that how it affects your mental cognition, mental clarity, stress, um, longevity, quality of life. So everybody
hmm,
needs to work out, but so many people don't know where to start. So I want to
yeah.
be that trusted hand to guide them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's all fantastic, man. That's why we're on this podcast to share this message. I hope that gets out to
Thank
other
you.
people. And I want to talk about overcoming those limiting beliefs. Your podcast is called Excel Beyond Boundaries, and for me as a performance coach, is really about helping people break those limiting beliefs about themselves. And I've recently, for me, have gone into life coaching. I'm not sure if you or your audience members have heard of Tony Robbins.
Yes, I have so many questions for you coming up, by the way. I wanted to ask you about all of that. So
Yeah, we could.
perfect
We
timing.
actually. It's a big part of my coaching and where I kind of focus a lot because it makes a bigger impact. Uh, Everybody, I've been on social media doing my marketing for like 10 years now. I started around 30 because that's when I really, really started like becoming more trying to change my life to become more meaningful. But I was still exercising. I was still doing challenges. I ran a marathon. I've been powerlifting and been kind of like supporting my community and like, uh, and sharing like the fitness, and that it had become my identity. But I've been partying and socializing. And once I started giving up that part of my life, right, it's kind of like shifting my identity into a more impactful version of myself. That's when I actually started. That's when I gave up alcohol. That's when my brain really, really started to change, and really in positive ways, and that I didn't even know. And the long term or the benefits that has happened has been so much clarity has came from giving up alcohol and really focusing on it. And one, my physique just blew up, right? I was able to get down to like 4% body fat, uh
Wow.
for like my bodybuilding competition. I was always a pretty like chubby athlete. I would say like had a little bit more fat on myself, but when I started focusing on that, giving up the alcohol, and then seeing the direct relationship, how it affected my gym performance, my physique performance, my overall well-being. I think one thing that is starting to, I think the stigma is starting to change is alcohol, lifestyle, because it's such a norm. It's so normal for people to revolve their routines and their activities around alcohol. Why
Oh yeah.
not? For me, it was always been like, let's go to the gym, have a good gym session, and then go eat or have some drinks afterwards, right? But then when I started like eliminating the alcohol, that's when I started seeing more. But when I started going to like performance coaching more in the mindset, that's where I started studying a lot more psychology. I started studying more uh, techniques to help break limiting beliefs and starting like breaking those patterns. And that's where it might be a little interesting for you.
Oh yeah, no, all of that's so interesting. What inspires you to get into the performance coaching and then take the Anthony Robbins training
Coach
and all of that?
training. So in college, I wasn't 100% sure of exactly what I wanted to do with my life, but a fraternity brother of mine introduced me to this book. It was called Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. So on and off, he's been like my mentor, like by either books, listen to podcasts, or like motivational tapes, because his books and his tapes are actually like very, very practical. Instead of some people think that performance coaches, life coaches are about this like motivation, but not any substance. But he's always had substance from his book. So in college was kind of like my first big breakthrough. That's when I started lifting weights. That's when I started like going after things a little bit more with the breakthrough. But now that I'm 38, I was married, but between 30 and like 38, that was when I was going through big life changes. I got married and I had kids. But around the time during the pandemic, a lot of stuff happened, like with my corporate job. I got laid off. Uh, Other people's stress were starting to come on me. I was always this person that was able to like manage stress really well. But the toxicity started to, I just go everywhere. I'm sure you felt it, right? Before the
Oh yeah.
pandemic, after the pandemic, the stress level just
Oh yeah.
rose.
Huge shift.
Huge shift. And it was a big shift. And For me, I'm a very energetic person and understand like my own self. But when I was going through that, and I went through a divorce as well too, so I was dealing with a lot of like mental health issues. Uh, had to deal with a lot of like my own depression, after like the divorce. So I went to therapy, but then I was like, I really need something else. I really needed to change something and make a big shift in my life, and that's when I started working. I didn't get a Robbins. So I'm certified by Robbins Madonna's training. So Tony Robbins teamed up with Chloe Madonna's, and Chloe Madonna's is like a therapist, but the training included a lot of like Tony's interventions and how like he would help people break patterns of like limiting beliefs. So he would ask very like thoughtful. So part of my coaching is asking and exploring like some of the questions that you have that you might not be seeing for yourself, right? You might have limiting beliefs about your business. You
True.
might you might have limiting beliefs about who you're coaching, who you could coach, what you could do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And part of the mindset part is it's a lot of it is psychology. And I knew this from a long time ago that a lot of it is psychology. Why do people not go work out? Why do people not focus on exercise? Mainly it's what's here, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Once they overcome that and they break that limiting part of it and cut the noise, there's like it's a like interesting fact is that you have to hear something 60 to 80 times that's good before you actually take action on something, like
60 to 80
yeah,
times.
60 to 80
Man.
times. So that, I mean, it's a tough job for coaches because you got to repeat things over and over. Because I
Repetition.
repeat things over and over and over and over. But in a way, like if I have a podcast, if I have something, I'm repeating it over and over, but in a different angle. So it could
Ah,
resonate with other people in a different way. But it really comes down to the psychology, the personal psychology. What do you say every day when you don't want to work out? Well, uh,
excuses.
I did it last time and I didn't see any results, right? Oh, my friend's not going. I'm not going to go, right? Those same thought patterns come up over and over, but most people do not know how to interrupt that pattern. And when you interrupt that pattern, you say, what do we do when that thought pattern comes up? We had to shift it, right? It comes in reframing. Okay. Maybe I'm like a lot of people have limiting beliefs or talk about themselves as like they've always been fat or something like that or out of shape.
Oh yeah.
And they walk around like I'm not an athlete. I'm a fat person, right?
Oh, in their
That
mind.
Yeah, and that internal belief is more powerful than people think because it limits growth. And it's like when you talk about your podcast, Excel Beyond Boundaries, that is what breaking limits are. The limits are in your mind. It's not the gym. It's not the technicalities because anything that if you want something enough, you will learn it because
That's a
there's
good
YouTube
point.
videos, right?
Oh
There's
yeah.
Instagram, there's coaches, there's trainers, they're all there at your resources. It's just that people have not overcome these beliefs about themselves so they could do it. But yeah,
That's
that's and for me, I went that route because I knew it was gonna be more impactful. It was impactful for me because I was able to pull myself out from a very dark place, a very difficult place. If anybody's been through like divorce, right? When you deal with grief, it's hard. Like you don't have any energy, you don't have any motivation. But that is actually what got me out of the situation, right?
that's
Making
beautiful.
space out, continuing it, right? Most people would stop when it gets difficult, especially
Oh
when
yeah.
life throws them a lot of uh, like shit. I'm pretty sure everybody's dealt with a lot of shitstorm, a
Oh yeah.
shitstorm, right? But that was like one of the things that helped me get through difficult times throughout my life. So, and that's why I want to emphasize like so important. Like if anybody's dealing with any mental health issues right now, right? And there are people that are dealing with that. I spoke with a lot of people, I've coached a lot of people, one-on-one clients. It's just that we don't talk about it as much. So
Yes.
for me, this podcast is meant to open up that conversation about mental health. Why
That's
aren't we talking about it? Why aren't we going to the gym? Why aren't we doing
yeah.
something about it and everything? So
That's
that's kind of the
true.
reason why I got into it, and it's just kind of continued and evolved over and over.
Man, no, that's beautiful. And your story is kind of similar to mine, where you pursued the credentials and the knowledge to kind of dig yourself out and restart,
Yeah,
and then you found that inspiration to help others. That's a beautiful story.
it's a great way to reinvent yourself. I've done massive transformations in the gym. That was kind of, for me, has always been that anchor, that X factor, the training. Despite, like, even when I first started in college and stuff, started getting serious, I didn't have much money. Right? A limitation that a lot of people might have is budget. I think we actually might go into like this next topic of discussion of like myths and like what's actual like facts and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right? Do you need a lot of money to start a business? Do you need a lot of money to start a fitness program? Right? There's certain ways, and as you done it for so long, you just get super creative.
Oh yeah. It's I've got some funny stories for you in relation to that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Feel free to share. But I do want to talk about some of the myths when you first start off that a lot of people, those are limiting beliefs. It's like, and the worst one, I hear this all the time, especially when it comes to women. I don't want to look like a man. Uh,
Oh
you,
man,
you
that's
hear that? I know you hear that.
yes, yes. Number one, the number one myth I've heard, 100% for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Tell me from your experience of like some of the challenges that you have faced with like trying to coach people and get them on the right track, or like helping them remove limiting beliefs.
Oh yes, no, I had with that concern, it was I would try to preach to men and women, but more so women at the time that weight training is the way to go. Weight training is the number one thing that change body composition, increase bone density, all of that.
Yeah,
And then they would all say, most of them would say, I don't want to get bulky, I don't want to get big. And I would tell them that there was a time when I was going to a powerlifting gym and it was mostly women. And so these women were, lifting heavy and they weren't big. They just looked lean and strong,
yeah,
like an athletic. And so I would try to use that example, but they wouldn't believe me. In their mind, they wouldn't believe me. And I would tell them other examples where even women in bodybuilding who are drug free, training to be as big as possible, not necessarily bikini, but other divisions, and it's still challenging. Like it's not that
yeah,
easy. And so I would try to drill that mentality and to change their the misconception. And it's just interesting how people, some of them accepted what I was telling them and then, started getting into weight training, but then others wouldn't want to let go of it. I don't know if it was an excuse or what it was, but they wouldn't want to let go of that belief.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's somewhat of both. It's a limiting belief that people will hold on to until they remove it. And the thing is, there's no such thing as being too big, too bulky. And when people see people on the magazines, like we were talking about, like those people are on PEDs, right?
Oh,
Even for
yeah.
me, yeah, for me being a lifetime natural athlete, I still get to this day, like nobody thinks I'm a bodybuilder. They see my picture, they're like, damn, but it's like I still 24 years left and still think that like I could be bigger, right?
Yeah.
But I mean that's coming from like our perspective. But the perspective of somebody else that has this limiting beliefs, one, it's they probably don't care enough to lift weights, because lifting weights is it's difficult. It makes you sore. You have to put the effort to go to the gym, and relating to them that it is tough, but the benefits of it far exceeds far exceeds anything, right? Like if you're dealing with, I after going through like mental health issues, depression and stuff, I didn't have to go get medication. I didn't have to go to a psychiatrist, right? And I know therapists say don't use the gym as your therapy, but it was part of my way of keeping myself healthy
Oh, yeah.
and managing the emotions and dealing with a lot of that stuff. And if anybody's here, like especially if it's like women or like men, and they're afraid to lift weights, but lifting weights, it's not going anywhere. Gyms have exploded. Arnold started like the back in the 80s and 70s, and it started getting more popular. But you see gyms everywhere. I live on the East Coast. They're just as gyms are just as popular as grocery stores,
Oh
right?
yeah, every corner almost.
Every quarter, yeah. So it's there. It's not gonna go anywhere. And once people could overcome that limiting belief that you're gonna get too bulky, you're not gonna get too bulky. You're gonna become athletic. You're gonna become strong, right? Shifting that becomes so much better. And anybody that is athletic in shape, they just look better. I'm not like trying to say that there's a superiority thing, and people just avoid lifting weights. Yes, it is a little painful. Yes, it hurts, but it teaches your body to recover, right?
Yes.
It makes your immune system better. You get
Oh
sick less,
yeah. Oh, 100%. Yes.
and you become harder to kill, right?
Uh, yeah, exactly. And what I noticed is when I didn't work out for like a month, let's say, I've been consistent my whole life, aside from like a period
Yeah,
of a month here, a period of a month there. But if you're sedentary for like a month, let's say, and you need to lift something heavy, you might strain your back, or you might be crazy sore the next day. So working out consistently, it just makes you so much more resilient. Where if you have to lift something heavy, you don't even feel it.
yeah,
You don't strain anything. The next day you feel fine. So it's almost worth just working out for life to prevent injuries and be functional in life. So it's worth that hour, 3-4 times a week for all the benefit of just being able to function better in life. So many
yeah.
benefits. It's crazy.
I'm pulling up Chat GBT here. I'm like, what are the biggest myths
Smart. I
when
like that.
it comes to working out? I'm gonna read it here.
Let's see. I'm curious to see what it says.
You need to work out every day to see results. Lifting weights will make you bulky. We talked about the
Yes, yes.
spot reduction works.
No.
Um, Cardio is the best way to lose weight.
Oh man, these are good.
These are good.
These
Dude,
are
I ran a
good.
marathon thinking I was gonna lose weight, but I ran a marathon thinking I was gonna lose weight, but it all comes down to the diet. All right, so sweating more means you're burning more fat. Okay, you have to spend hours in the gym. You have to eat protein immediately after a workout. More pain, more gain.
Oh man, these are
Machines are
good.
safer than free weights. Older adults should avoid strength training. How about this? Pick one, talk
Ooh,
about it, and I'm gonna pick one, and then we'll talk about it as well
I
too. So
like that. Damn,
yeah,
those are good. I
yeah.
would say I'm gonna go with the what was the second and third one again? I mean the
Well,
third
we
and the
talked
fourth
about
one?
lifting weights makes you bulky
Yeah.
already. Spot reduction, cardio is the best way to lose weight. Sweating means more you
Uh
are, or you
cardio.
have to spend hours in the gym.
Cardio is the
Uh-huh.
best way to lose weight. I'll nail that one down.
Yeah,
Uh so no, of course, because the cardio it reduces the size of your engine that burns fat. So then the weight training increases the size of your engine, so your metabolic rate increases. So if you the more lean muscle you have, every pound of lean muscle, you burn more calories at rest. So but overall metabolism is boosted. So people don't realize that cardio might burn, depending on the way they're training. If they're doing interval training, they might burn more calories in a session and
hmm
they might get that afterburn effect. So they burn a little after the session. But generally speaking, weight training is gonna build, and they're gonna burn more calories overall in the long run.
yeah.
So yeah, no comparison. Weight
To
training.
lifting, I know.
Yeah, I know but
You're speaking to the choir or preaching to the choir,
yeah.
right? Cardio, like and my I want to pick number 10. Older adults should avoid strength training because I'm gonna use a real life example here on how that's a big misconception. Like women, kids shouldn't lift weights, adults shouldn't lift weights, um, and avoiding weights when you're injured, right? But I definitely like what you said about cardio. People thinking that cardio is the best way to lose weight. Anytime I ever coach somebody or build a program with them, I try to emphasize that when you do build muscle, you will have things to work with, like clay, right? When you do cardio, it takes a little bit of time, like without the muscle, without the necessary like resources, you're almost like burning like nothing. And then if you start to cut your calories, yes, you will lose weight, but your body composition will not change. It'll look pretty much like the same. Like if you're 180 pounds and you get down to like 140, you're the same version, but 40 pounds less. But as you start to kind of incorporate like a regular lifestyle or whatever, uh, you start to bring that weight back up. And that's where a lot of people, I think, where they mess up is not including enough weights in their training program. But spot on. I appreciate you sharing that. But the one the one misconception I want to talk about is older adults should avoid strength training. So for me, when I see people as they get older, if you're not doing anything, you literally are like deteriorating. You know, you're not building that resilience. You're not densing or making your body more dense or stronger. And one prime example is I want to talk about my pops. So my pops, my dad, he's been fit, but he stopped working out for when he was going through his own difficult time. When my mom passed away, he just stopped working out. Kind of like became very like sickly, like very skinny, and wasn't able to do a lot of like normal functional stuff. But he's 69 years old, and I have two older brothers, and we both all work out, and we inspired him and taught him how to work out properly. And he is so energetic. Out of all his friends, that's like, because he's getting ready to retire and he's like 70, but he's still very lean, still out dancing, still playing music. He's a singer, and he's still very active at his job, and he's out like living his friends. And it's a true, like a true testament to that you should always lift weights. It doesn't have to be extremely uh it doesn't have to be like max effort every time you go to the gym. It could be a little bit of here and there. And I always coach my dad. It was like, if he ever feels like tired or sore, I said, Dad, ease up. It's better to actually recover and go to the gym when you're fully recovered, and so you could be effective. And he's been doing it for a long time, and I could see him living close to 100. I Our goal as is to get him to live to 100,
That's amazing. I
more.
like that.
Yeah, but that's my big misconception, is that like older people shouldn't lift weights, women shouldn't lift weights, kids shouldn't lift weights. I think we should all do a little bit of weightlifting.
Oh yeah, completely agree. And also, people have a misconception about age. Like I've been in obstacle course races. I've been beaten by guys in their mid 50s, and we would get like top 10, and there would be these one or two or three guys who were like 55, 56 years old, and they would always be ahead of me, and I could never catch them.
Yeah.
And the strongman competitions, like, so age doesn't have as much relevance as people think. It's crazy.
Yeah. If people shift that mindset of like getting older, you get weaker, it should be the other way around. You should natural bodybuilders. I had Philip Ricardo Jr. on here. He's you gotta check out that podcast. It's a great podcast because we talk
Definitely.
about like some of his struggles, and we talk about Dragon Ball. And some of his philosophies. But he's, I think, 54, 55 years old. He's still competing, but bodybuilders get better as they age, right? Muscles mature. You become more disciplined. You become more focused as you get older. Yeah, you still have to worry about different things because your body changes. Like my body's not the same as I was at 16 years old, right? It takes a little bit more to recover, and I have to focus a lot more on my stretching and getting less injuries. But that's all a part of the process, because it's part of the growth process too. And yeah, I inspire anybody, if they're listening to your podcast or this podcast, is get into the gym and just be as consistent as possible. It's going to pay such big dividends in your lifestyle.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
For sure.
How about your lifestyle and how you have developed it to incorporate it into your work, your lifestyle, and into your own personal growth? Where have you done that, or like how is it now?
Um, would say it's gone through different phases where it was, first thing in the morning, it was like, priority to get that done, 100% effort and intensity to for like peak performance. Um and then other phases when life priorities shifted, business was more important or family or other things. So I learned to scale it back instead of just stopping and thinking, oh, I don't have time to work out. I would scale it back to working out or squeezing in whatever I could. If it was just simply a quick run or a quick walk or a quick 20-minute workout, 3 exercises, I would scale it back to whatever I was able to do. And and that way I was able to maintain. So periods of, adversity, I was able to maintain a high strength level, high performance level through just doing what I could. And where I'm at
Yeah.
now, aside from that, I've also learned to have really simple, efficient, and effective workouts. So push pull, you can do like a full body day, 30 minutes in and out, like cable chest press, cable row, back to back, 2 sets, uh, shoulder press, lat pull down, back to back, 2, 3 sets. So yeah, there's ways to make it very quick, very efficient. You can do rounds of 3. So
Yeah.
like push pull legs round, 2 3 rounds onto the next grouping. A lot of ways to put a workout together that people don't realize.
Yeah, there is. And I think that's the first part of like coaching is to see whoever you're coaching or whoever you're working with, like what do they want to do? Not everybody wants to be a competitive athlete, whether it be a Spartan race or a CrossFit athlete or a bodybuilding, uh, bodybuilding athlete. It takes time and effort from it takes away from a lot of things. Uh, but for me, learning those strategies when I wanted to do things hard, and I brought up your little Instagram page here for everybody to see how jacked and happy and how ripped you are. Look at this picture. This is why you
Thank
bench
you.
315 right here. My chest does not look like that.
Thank you. I think it was the lighting, to be honest, because I'm like 180, 185 on a good day.
Okay. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna link your podcast name on here, and anybody that's listening to this, you can follow me as well too. I have some inspirational content, and I do podcasting, but I do post little tips as well too, and our page looks very similar as well too. But
And I'll do
so
the same for you. I'll link yours as well.
yeah, absolutely, and incorporating and like what you talked about was just like little strategies at the gym that you could do to shorten up the workouts. But initially talking, like figuring out anybody that's listening to this podcast is like, okay, if you want to start a fitness program, you want to start being more fit, you have to be very realistic as well too. There are people that do want to compete, but it takes years and years of discipline to become a competitive bodybuilder. Some people want to be competitive bodybuilders. It takes a lot of discipline and a lot of work to get up to there, but being realistic about it and strategizing and planning. And more importantly, is understanding people's lifestyle, right? Lifestyle. For me, I've had so many different transitions of lifestyle. I started as a student, started as a college student, then I started as a bachelor and a married person, now a divorced person. But really, like the development of knowledge is more important, right? For me, is like having trainers and having like different strategies how to incorporate that into your lifestyle. Super important, just as important as like knowing what your PRs are is knowing where you could fit a workout in, knowing
Oh yeah.
where you could take a rest day or when to back off a little bit. There's times where I've had times where like I've been hitting the gym and crushing it and going more than I should, and I actually had to back up because that actually helps with reducing injuries. But really taking an assessment of like your lifestyle first, I think is super important. And for me, anybody that's like super busy, like you could fit it in. The biggest thing that I think people need to focus on is like prioritizing. I'm gonna bring up my Instagram page so people
Yeah, I
could.
was gonna say I was thinking about doing the same to show my audience.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. So I got mine here. So it's
Looking
Sam.
lean in that picture.
Yeah, this is my the little childhood picture right here. But like really understanding like your lifestyle is so important, right? Because
Definitely.
that's where you could fill in the workouts. That's when you could fill in the rest days and calculate. Um, but yeah, I think that's like one of my big things. I ran a marathon. That was the
Oh
marathon I ran.
yeah. Where was the marathon and what inspired you to do that?
To be honest, I didn't know much about nutrition and training back in the day, and I thought running was the best way to lose fat.
Also, it was to get leaner. It was
It
to
was
lose
to get
fat.
leaner. I got lean, but I
Ah,
also lost a lot of muscle mass.
dang.
I mean, I still lifted weights, but my legs were like pretty small. And I posted that picture. I was like, this is why I'll never run. Like, I don't run too much. I probably run like a mile and a half at most, or 3 miles, and I could still run from like my CrossFit background. But I mainly enjoy lifting weights, eating, and working, and that's kind of like where. But I'm still very functional as well too. So I've gone through the whole gamut of learning everything, and now I've learned to just develop my own style of programming, and it comes down into just more like a hybrid style of uh of training, right? It has to be functional.
What does your training look like for during a week?
Right now,
Yeah.
uh so right now it's mainly bodybuilding focus,
Okay.
but so I typically hit about 4 workouts a week. Anything more than I can do more, but it'll probably be more stretching. It'll probably be more cardio. Yeah, I don't want to over like because there's a fine line of like overworking and seeing progress. I still see progress, but four training sessions for me, it'd be like 3 to 4 bodybuilding sessions. But I'll break up the sessions into like 30 to 45 minutes. So 30 to 45 minutes of bodybuilding, whether it be chest back day, and it was really focused on mainly my weaknesses. So I have very strong legs, like my hamstrings and my quads are dominant, like when I compete on stage. So I mainly focus a lot on my weakness, which is right here, my upper chest.
Ah,
That's why I was
okay.
so jealous of your chest development. Everybody
Uh,
focuses the chest when they first start out.
I'm jealous of the legs. My legs are skinny.
Yeah. And for me, I focus mainly on my legs when I first started working out. It's actually like when I first started lifting weights in the weight room, it was all about the squats. For me, it was like
Ah,
squats,
good.
squats, squats. So that's when I started competing. My first bodybuilding coach was like, "You have a great build for bodybuilding." One, because not a lot of people have big legs, not a lot of people have
True.
big back,
Yeah.
and I'm a fairly short athlete. I'm not tall. I'm not. I was never gifted in the heights. How tall are you? Like 5'10"?
Yeah, yeah, about 5'10", 5'11".
Yeah,
But I was gonna say different heights, yeah, different advantages. So I mean, that's
yeah,
perfect for yeah, different performance sports and also bodybuilding for sure.
absolutely. Like I didn't. I mean, I was okay as a CrossFit athlete, mediocre, uh, better than the average. But I there was those movements where like if you were taller, if you were a little bit bigger, you were better. You were just a better athlete just because you were taller. And bodybuilding, it does kind of tailor towards to like shorter athletes. Um, some of the competitors they're 5'7", 5'8",
Yeah.
five. Like I'm 5'5", right? Arnold himself, he was probably the tallest. Like he was like 6'4".
The Franco, what was his name? The Italian guy. Franco,
Yeah,
he was like 5'5", right? And he was
yeah,
huge.
yeah. I don't know if he was 5'5", but he was definitely a short athlete. Like maybe it's because he stood by Arnold at times because Arnold was really tall.
I watched a video on him recently. I think he about that range, but
Yeah,
yeah, he was like one of the best bodybuilders as well.
yeah. The reason why shorter athlete or shorter bodybuilders excel is because you're more compact, right? Versus like an athlete like Arnold, and that's why Arnold is such a legend is because he was like a tall athlete and was able to put so much muscle on that frame and still actually be very athletic. He was very athletic, like you could see him running from like the movies and stuff. And a lot of his philosophy, I use it because athletes needs to be athletic. Bodybuilders nowadays, like especially the high level ones, they're not as athletic. They become muscle bound,
Oh yeah.
right? That's why like the CrossFit community hates on bodybuilding That's why bodybuilding hates on CrossFitters.
Opposites.
Opposites. I
Yeah.
got to a point where I was like, it's we don't need to like worry about the separation, and that's kind of where my philosophical thought process has come now, is that what works and what's more effective is what we should do for the athlete, the specific athlete, right? If that specific athlete is somebody that enjoys lifting heavy and has a build for it, go there, right? But that person doesn't want to be a bikini athlete. Not everybody wants to be a bikini athlete or like a
That's true. Yeah. All about
right.
goals.
So it's all specific goals. Like people have different desires or like different training ways that they enjoy, but you can also explore different ways to keep things from getting boring. And that's how I've kind of done it. So if I do bodybuilding, and I love bodybuilding, but I get tired of it too, you know?
Oh
It's like
yeah.
if your favorite food is pizza and you eat pizza all the time, you're gonna be like, fuck pizza for
Yeah, no, that's true. You got to switch it up. And it's cool that you experience so many different training styles. So, and now you're
yeah,
on to the next phase where you're integrating the bodybuilding and functional training.
yeah.
What's your next focus, would you say?
My next
What's your
focus on my
Yeah.
physical. For now, my physical is I'm very happy where my physicality is, my knowledge of nutrition. Um, I do plan to compete again, but the next time I do plan to compete again, I'm gonna line it up really, really strategically, clear out my calendar, and make sure that I win the show, because I've competed 4 times and I've gotten like super, super close to becoming a professional bodybuilder. So I'm an amateur, still amateur bodybuilder, but I've gotten close second 3 times.
Nice. That's good. Yeah, very close.
Very close, like
Very
on the cusp
close.
of it. So I'm not one of those person that likes to compete all the time. There's athletes that compete like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 times like a season or like a year. One, it's a lot of money. It's a lot
Oh
of money.
yeah.
It's a lot of money.
My
Bodybuilding's pretty expensive.
my
The
girlfriend did
food.
bikini, and I remember,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of respect for the sport, for the how disciplined everybody is. I never knew behind the scenes, and it's crazy. It never
Hmm.
stops. But yeah, very expensive for
Very
sure.
expensive sport. So I just do it strategically, and it's always in the background for me, right? Bodybuilding is always in the background, but it's also being healthy and functional too. Like I don't want to be muscle bound. I don't want to be uh, walking around with a broken back, jacked up knee or anything. So a lot of it is it's a lot more thoughtful now as I'm older, more strategic, mainly still bodybuilding, but also functionality. So that's to me is like a hybrid athlete.
Yeah,
And a hybrid athlete should be able to pick up other sports fairly easy if you use the same principles. And I try to teach that. That's where the philosophical side comes in, where eliminating like useless movements. I think there's some useless movements in the fitness industry that I don't incorporate into like my personal coaching and like when I coach other people. And then just learning and evolving like what program, what movements, what food do you like, what lifestyle do you like, and if we could shift our mindsets in coaching and teaching people to look at things that way instead of, oh, I'm dreading working out, I'm dreading to eat this healthy food. It
yes.
shouldn't be that way, you know.
Mindset, being grateful and realizing that it's an opportunity they should
Yeah.
to be able to work out, to be able to eat, that shifting their mindset.
Yeah, man. I think that's so important. That big shift in the mindset is like everything's work. I think people just like you don't expect money without going to work, right?
Oh yeah, that's true. That's
People
true.
expect a healthy body, a capable body without going to work or going to the gym. It's not gonna happen, you
No
know?
shortcuts in fitness. You get what you put in.
Yeah. And I think that there's a big metaphor that, I mean, for me, gym has always been a big metaphor that, okay, yes, it's the gym. Nobody sees the progress or the hours that you put in the gym, right? But what happens when you're out of the gym? You know, how do you apply that same mentality, same mindset outside of the gym into your work, into your relationships. And I'm really trying to bridge that gap with a lot of people, especially with this podcast and like functional fitness and training and stuff, is that relates to other parts of your life as well too. You
Oh
look at
yeah.
anybody that's like happy, healthy, like pulling up your Instagram, I'm pretty sure you have great relationships, right? You know how to manage your stress.
Yeah, you're right. It does translate well. It's so symbolic of life, fitness.
It is. It's a big, like I say, it's like for me, I've always used it as a metaphor where like if I ever had to go through difficult times, I've gone through difficult times in the gym. How
You're
did
right.
I, how did we get through it?
The gym's always there for us.
The gym is always there. It's our, it's our bro talk.
Yeah, but it's so true though. It
Yeah,
is stress relief and just like when I was younger, I would channel anything that bothered me into the gym. Now I have a different mentality, but I would just train angry and just it was my outlet. And now I'm training more of different mentality, more enjoying it, and
yeah,
it's just interesting how things can shift. Like your
yeah,
fitness journey can go through different chapters, but it's always been good for stress relief though.
yeah. Have you seen the impact that has made on like the people that you coached or like mentored or trained, like the impact that has made on their life?
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Since it's such a keystone habit, I saw when I was working at Orange Theory, group fitness for I worked in different group fitness facilities, but one example sticks out to me the most where this guy came in, he was overweight, and he started working out with us, on his lunch break at Orange Theory. And you know how Orange Theory has the interval training, so it's
Yeah.
treadmill, rower, weight room. They don't emphasize the weight room a lot, but this guy did it right, where he would lift heavy in the weight room. He would choose proper weights, so it actually was stimulation, and he would go all out on the treadmills, and he ended up dropping a lot of weight and gaining muscle because he was lifting heavy in the weight room because they
Mm,
had a heavier weight room, heavier rack of dumbbells aside from like the little ones that you get behind the bench. So behind the bench it goes up to like 20 or 25 max, but then they have a heavier rack of like goes up to 70. So he was pushing himself. He would listen to us. He learned the movements, and yeah, he dropped a lot of weight. He got lean muscle, and he transformed. And then he started. To answer your question, it translated to his entire life.
mm.
He started eating healthier. He started being more active. He did like races. He started, hanging out with people. He ended up, I think, even in his personal life, things started to change as well. Um, yeah, it was amazing to see like complete transformation.
Yeah. That's
But
where, man, I think it's where it keeps that like because before I started CrossFitting, I was just kind of training myself, working out by myself. But when I started getting into where I was coaching other people, that's when it started like clicking. Like there's a reason why I started lifting at age and I had to like share this knowledge or this wisdom because not everybody is capable of overcoming some of these limiting beliefs. When the biggest impact and that was kind of when I first started CrossFit. I excelled in CrossFit just because I just been lifting weights and I picked it up. But people looked me as like a leader in the gym. In the gym that I was coaching at, it's a local gym, like uh called CrossFit Annandale. Still have close connection. The gym closed down, but during the time when we were building it, it was mainly women. It was mainly women. It was like super interesting. And then there's a few lifters like me and a few other people, but maybe like 70 to 80% of the clientele were women and they were lifting weights.
interesting, yeah,
And I loved it. I never treated the female athletes different than men. I never like pushed them less. I
good,
never encouraged them less. I never said, "Oh, you're a female, like you shouldn't lift." And
yeah,
everybody gravitated towards that type of coaching, and they learned and they grew. And everybody has their particularities. Like I coached a little bit different than other coaches. I wasn't so worried about like the percentages. I was worried about like the energy that people were bringing, and I brought that, and a lot of that translated to a lot of the athletes. And if you watch some of my like old YouTube videos, I have some and some of my old Instagram. That's where I post some of my content. But that for me was like the first time taste of like, man, how coaching can impact other people. And it was just CrossFit. It was just something that I was like, oh, CrossFit certification. Yeah, I'm gonna be a coach. Like I had no interest, but it took me into a place where like I saw how much it impacted other people, and it made me feel so good about myself that I'm gonna keep doing
It's
it.
powerful. Yeah, it really
It
does put
is,
it in perspective. Yeah,
yeah. And then one thing too, like this podcasting has become such a game changer for me in my niche in personal development. So we talked about training, we talked about nutrition, and then we talked about mindset and like podcasting. That's what this podcast is about, is to talk about stories, relations, things how we could give back to our community and everything. And we're wrapping up, our long conversation about our passions and everything. But feel free to tell us a little bit about like your plans with your community and you know what you're looking to achieve and everything. And part of like my podcast is where I could support people in marketing or showcasing them. I have the community I shared with you, that you feel free, but definitely tell us a little bit about what the future holds for you, Jonathan.
definitely. And thank you for that. Your community is awesome, and I think it's so cool what you built with your podcast, your brand, the community,
I just
and
made it up.
what's that?
I said I just made it up.
You did, it's
I tell
awesome.
everybody, I was like, look, I'm just like you guys. Like, there is no limiting beliefs that you should have between me and like what I do and stuff. It's just that I took action.
That's a good point, though. That yeah, anybody's capable of creating something. They just need to do it.
Yeah.
That's good
Yep.
to remember because yeah, a lot of people just don't start.
You just don't
Um,
start.
yeah, no, that's so true, so true. The my brand, a I want to provide value through helping people, break down the self-imposed limitations through the education, the courses, the training, the products down the road. Eventually, a hybrid style competition. Products, accessories. So, a fitness brand with all different components. But I need to begin with the podcast, which I love right now because I get to
Yeah.
connect with people like you, and it's fascinating how fitness and everyone in general gets united through technology and podcasts. And I love interviewing people. It's so cool to just hear people's stories. So yeah,
Yeah.
the podcast, the different brand components, it's all coming together. But they
Yeah.
can find me on my Instagram, so jonathan.simos, jonathan.simos, on Instagram, my athletic Instagram, or my website, which currently directs to a school community, but in the next couple days it'll be uh, adjusted. It's on newexist.com. So NEUXIST.
Okay. I'll link that in the podcast notes and everything.
Thank you.
And yeah, I mean, best of luck. Any way we could support you. Podcasting is the best way for me to help promote other coaches and other people within the same industry. For me, it's always about alignment. Like if we share similar values, I don't think there's a need for us to like separate anything. Like we're all coaches, we're all in the same trying to help our communities, right? You have your community, I have my community, but there's shared knowledge, shared philosophies and stuff that we can learn from each other. And that's what I'm really big about. I'm big about impact this year. So
I like
last
that.
year I started the podcast, I started the community, and started my coaching business. I've always been coaching, but I really wanted to go more and more into individual coaching, like remote coaching. So I have courses as well too, similar, uh, but it goes into the mindset and training modules. But the podcast is just a free resource that I thoroughly love. I thoroughly enjoy just putting it out there and promoting it and hearing the feedback that it has from the community, because it makes big impact on how people see things. And I've always been about teaching and trying to get my information out there as much as possible, whether it be free, whether it be paid. Uh, I always I feel like it's a service that
Oh
I
yeah,
provide, and
definitely.
it ties into like a bigger mission for me. But, and part of the podcast, part of the community is to elevate the collective to coaching and conversations just like this.
I like that. Elevate the collective through coaching and conversations.
Yes,
I
yes. We're
like
gonna
that.
elevate everybody through all that. But yeah, fantastic, man. I enjoyed having you here in the podcast. Uh, you want to wrap
Thank
it
you.
up, or how do you want to end the show?
Oh yeah, no, that's perfect. I was just gonna say, I appreciate you having me as a guest,
Yeah.
and we definitely have to do something in the future. And we could also address other subjects and misconceptions and all of that again. So I really enjoyed it, and definitely look forward to something in the future.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you for taking your time out and having the bro talk and trying to inspire both of our communities. As you guys heard, this is the Modern Flow podcast, collaboration with Excel Beyond Boundaries. Uh, you have a question that you asked your guests before you end the show, right?
Yes, and actually, perfect because that was
Ask
one of
me.
the questions I wanted to ask you. Yes, it almost escaped my mind. What is next for you? How do you plan on excelling beyond boundaries, or how are you excelling beyond boundaries coming up?
Like you asked me what does excelling beyond boundaries means is to me. Is that what you asked me?
Yes, what it
Okay,
means to you, and what you're doing to excel
currently.
beyond boundaries. Yes, which you have a lot of different things you could mention for that.
I do have a lot of things, but for me, it comes into almost like a spiritual side now. Um, hadn't always been a very spiritual person, but when I started doing personal development, I always realized that like I've always been leaning into myself. So we talk about like excelling beyond boundaries and some of my own limitations, is really exploring my own spiritual side because uh I've noticed that I'm a little bit of an oddball, and I think like I do a lot of things that are a little bit different than the norm. I would say,
I
and
like
I'm
that.
really leaning into that now and speaking more up about my spiritual side and incorporating that into like my podcast and my teachings and like my courses and being really open about that. So that's some of the limiting beliefs that I've been working on and that nobody really wants to hear it. And I haven't been really speaking about it. Uh, but when I started podcasting, people were starting to gravitate that towards that more. And now that I'm more open about it, I'm starting to see that people are resonating with that message. And some of the more limiting beliefs that I'm working on myself comes around mainly business. It's like seeking different type of clientele and bringing the value that meeting the value in the people to this type of service that I want and really gain clarity on that. So that's where I am currently working on. And yeah, and the growth is there. As long as
Oh
I'm
yeah,
growing, I'm happy.
oh yeah. No, it sounds like you're on track for sure.
I don't know if I'm tracking. Sometimes I feel lost.
That's everybody though.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
okay to be lost, like when you're growing and expanding, like when you're building businesses and stuff. There's days where you feel super focused and you're feeling aligned with what you want to do on your mission, and then there's some days where you're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, it's as long as you're growing, and I'm growing. So for me, excelling beyond boundaries is growing incrementally better each day on things that you're not good at, you know?
powerful. I like
Yeah.
that.
You like that?
Yeah, I
All
haven't
right.
heard that yet, but it makes sense. Yeah, focusing on what areas of improvement and getting better each day, basically.
Yeah. Especially on things that you're not good at, you know?
Yeah.
I think for me, personal development is focusing on things that like it's like great. Like I could have great legs, but if I focus on having great legs all day, then I'm gonna have an imbalance physique, right? If you focus on areas that you might be struggling with, especially when it comes into personal development, whether it be dealing with your own triggers or something like that, that's when you become a more well-rounded person. So excelling beyond boundaries for me is focusing on those little things that you might have limitations on, like your growth, and focusing on that, which I think personally gets more bigger impact, um, instead of focusing on things that you're good at.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No,
Yeah,
that's I like that. Yeah, everyone should focus on the weaknesses to bring those up instead of focusing on the strengths. There's a time and a place for everything. I
yeah,
like
man.
that.
All right, man. I think we had a wonderful conversation here. I'm gonna close out the podcast. So that's the Modern Folk Podcast and Excel Beyond Boundaries with Jonathan Simos. Pleasure to have you here on the podcast, and we'll continue the conversation. Okay.
Thank you, Samnangs. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.